Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of Design Systems Rodeo. It's a podcast that focuses on the more advanced topics of design systems. Today's episode is Deep Impact with guest Elyse Holladay. I'm your host, Kevin Muldoon. I'm a senior design technologist with Dow Jones. Um, Now, before we dive into the topic that Elise is going to be talking about, we want to do the roundup. Now, notable events, three of them that I could count, is that Nate Baldwin um, announced on LinkedIn that he would be leaving Intuit, which that was very sad. That was his last day, so he put up there. And then 2 days later, he decided to inform us he's boomeranging back to Adobe. So congratulations to Nate to getting back in the seat of Adobe and helping out with the Spectrum design team. And also, Nate, do not scare us like that again. All right, fair enough. The next interesting thing is Brad Frost of Atomic Design fame is organizing a cool little benefit concert with no less than 40 musicians attending called Frostapalooza. Now, this is uh, this is very much like a Buckaroo Banzai level, where you're a very famous person and a musician, and the government sometimes calls you in to help out on an intractable problem. So not only is not only is Brad Frost, doing this Frostapalooza thing in Pittsburgh, but also our friend Ben Callahan has also been invited to join on stage as a musician. I don't even know what instrument he plays. I'm thinking it's mandolin. I'm not certain, but Ben Callahan was our guest on this show, and his episode was called Culture Club, where we talked about culture. And the last notable thing is on April 20th, a gentleman by the name of Matthew Strom of Stripe, the company Stripe, he published an article on his website called Generating Color Palettes. And he's creating a whole new way to generate ramps of colors. And he's basing it on OKHSL. Now, HSL, if you don't know, is a terrible, terrible, terrible way to express color. It's a derivative of sRGB. Um, and HSL alone, the L will stand for a lie. It's supposed to be for luminance or density, but it's just horrible. On the other hand, OK, which is made by Bjorn Ottoson, appears to have fixed much of that, with the one exception that it's still based on sRGB. However, Matthew is doing this. He published that paper. I totally recommend going ahead and pulling that up and reading it. If you're a math geek, you're going to have plenty of diagrams and formulas to go through. But some nice things that he put together is that he discovered the relationship of the L star luminosity, or the Y value in the XYZ color space, corresponds with the WCAG density, pass or fail. He was also recognized that the US web design system made that discovery themselves, which also, Salesforce actually made that discovery as well and redid their color palettes on this. So, really cool things happening there. Nate Baldwin also mentioned on Twitter that he sees a lot of the calculations are very similar, if not exact, to what Leonardo color is doing. So, that's pretty exciting. Um, and Matthew Strom is also tweaking some APCA specifications. Anyway, eventually he will want to Matthew will want to actually get away from sRGB to actually make a wider color space. But it's a really good paper. We'll share that link right there. So with all of that said, I suppose that has been a pretty interesting roundup. I'd like to welcome uh, Elyse Holladay. If you don't know her, she was first tapped to start the design system team for Indeed. So she has some logos behind her. She is a design systems engineer at Color Health. That is a virtual cancer clinic. And she is a longtime design systems practitioner and speaker who has been invited at events such as Clarity and just recently the Front End Design Conference. Uh, Elyse describes herself as an off the charts extrovert, an avid reader, and an expat Texan. Uh, and she has an armadillo tattoo. So, with all of that said, please welcome. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. And this is a topic we talked a little bit yesterday. This is the topic that I need help with, most especially, which is how to create impact in a design system in a way that, well, a you know it's impactful, so that's a nice thing. But you also need to actually share that impact with the leadership that may not
Mhm,
be dealing with the design system on an everyday basis. So, really,
mhm.
thank you so much for joining.
I'm so excited, and this is a topic that's this is my current little soapbox, but it's because this was a thing that I was not very good at for the majority of the beginning of my design system career, like the first, like 5, 10 years, and it really took like quitting tech and starting my own business to like really change my understanding of what impact even meant, and so now I had to get on my soapbox about it.
That's amazing. So, do you suppose that was really where the light bulb turned on when you had your own little business?
I did, yeah, and it's easy, I think, as design system practitioners to, we're systems people. We're like, I'm going to build this perfect thing and I want it to be good and I care about the details and I care about the organization and getting it all set up. And I think for a lot of us that's how our brains really work.
Hmm.
And we can kind of poo poo the business. Oh, like it has to have business value, like it just it's very mercenary, and I think a lot of times we don't like that, and that's very much where I was mentally. But when I had my own business and it was just me, it was very obvious, like it didn't matter if I made my css on my site really perfect. It didn't matter if I was like finessing that email. Like it didn't matter if I had all this stuff like perfectly arranged. Like the time I was spending doing that was time I was not talking to my customers. It was time I was not actually like making a sale. And so it just became very, very plain to me what's actually doing something for me and like what is actually worth my time. And I think that translates, obviously, having a non-tech solo business is very different than a design system, but I think it translates because it you're actually putting your energy to something that shows you the outcome rather than just like setting up this like perfect system that eventually probably hopefully will do the thing that you want.
Right, right, and because you were in that driver's seat of a company of yourself, you probably had a wonderful point of view when you're talking to people that are closer to that very very top driver's seat. I should imagine. What do you suppose? Well, maybe let's phrase it like this. There are many people trying to do a design system. They're just starting, and sea level or people very close to sea level are the people that you're interacting with. What are some things that are really going to capture their attention?
Mm-hmm. I mean, for you have to you have to answer this question first with it depends.
It depends, of course. Yeah.
But it depends specifically on your business, right? And I
Right.
think that we want very much to have this idea of like there's one way to measure design systems, there's one way to prove that we're worth it and that this is good. And that's just not really the case. There's a lot of things that do bubble up, and that's where you hear about efficiency and visual consistency and all of that good stuff. But some of those things are going to matter a lot more to one business than another. So if your business is in the process of scaling, the things that you can do to help your team move really fast might be far more valuable and impactful than and by scaling I mean like scaling your product, like growing, building the actual product out. That might be very different than, oh, suddenly we're going to add a whole bunch more, we're very stable and we're going to add a whole bunch more designers and developers. So the things that you do for developer experience or designer experience, the way you scale a design system and think about making those tools really useful versus, oh, we need to build a whole bunch of product, like how do we add that? So I think talking about the
So
specific
so
thing that the business
yeah.
is focusing on.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. That's
It sounds
Uh,
obvious, I know.
well, no, it does sound, yeah, because we think design system, and then of course what's in our mind is really what we're experiencing in our own individual organizations. I wonder, maybe another way. Let's go ahead and say I am a let's maybe circle back to the C level. How do I, a person making a design system, know that I'm actually making the right impact, that
Mm,
I'm actually making the progress that we want to make?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's not just the adoption metric for sure.
Hmm.
You know, when I talked about impact at front end design conf, when we talked about this a little bit yesterday in our pre-chat, and I
Hmm.
want to actually step back before I answer that question and talk about like what even is impact, because we. I mean, I said like, oh, we can get very like mercenary. We think it's like very mercenary to be like, oh, the business is always changing, and you have to have business value, and it just feels really like grody sometimes. You're like, I just want to make this beautiful like Figma thing. I just want to make these perfect components. Um, but it's not just like making more money for your CEO or your shareholders. It's not, you just your performance review. Um, in my talk at Front End Design Conf, I talked about this idea that impact is work that demonstrates change. It changes a behavior, creates an outcome. And impactful work delivers behavior change repeatedly. And when we think about a design system, when you're talking about the value of a design system and you're talking to leadership about a design system, they don't care about a design system. They care about, can our team move faster? Do we have more visual consistency? Can we have visual consistency across all of our different brands or across our different kind of platforms? They care about, why is it taking so long and so many iterations to like hand off between design and engineering? Like, where are all these bugs coming from? Why do we have all these UI bugs? Like, those are the things that they care about, right? Because those are the things that they see. And we often, I think, in the industry, then we're like, oh, a design system. And then the joke that I've been making is, you pitch a design system, you build one, you shake it hard enough and efficiency falls out. And it's like, oh, you just have it and then everything is gonna be great. But your leaders in your company, the people who we think about as gatekeepers, I find it very helpful when you think about like how to communicate the value of this, is to think about your leadership as they're people with problems, right? Like, they're not mystical gatekeepers who are like stopping you from doing this thing that you want to do. They have a job, and their job is to get all the engineers and designers to build good UIs that make enough money to keep the business alive and like do the thing for your users, right? They have a problem. How do you solve it? How can you help them solve it?
Absolutely, and that seems to be the best way to phrase almost anything. Is that, hey, listen, I didn't just walk into your office to cause more problems for you. I actually have a solution
Ask
to
you for
problems you have.
money and
Yeah,
resources. Yes.
I
Yeah.
need more money. I need more resources, and I need you to work harder. No, no, no. Actually, I've got this idea, and you don't have to work as hard. That
Mhm.
that seems to get people's attention.
Exactly. And that, you were asking about, well, how do we know if we're actually succeeding at that impact? And I think we can talk about metrics. I know we had that kind of earmarked to touch on, but
Mm.
metrics or not, it's answering the question, what actually matters to my organization, to my team? And and am I actually getting that outcome? So if you think about work as delivering, impactful work as delivering behavior change, well, what behavior are you hoping to change? And if it's efficiency, maybe it's how long it takes for a design and development team to build part of a product. Maybe it's how fast does it just the building part take? Maybe it's how many bugs, where are those bugs coming up in QA, like what kind of questions are being asked around how to build UI, like. And these things can be very hard to measure. And so I think the focus on metrics has become very like, if we just put a number on it, then all of the like smart mathy business finance people will be like, ah, yes, here, the money. Like, but they just want to know that it's solving the problem that they have.
Right.
And if it's not solving the problem, there's got
Yeah,
to be some way to know, like, and it's not just a number.
absolutely. Yeah, it's You've mentioned behavior, solving for a behavior. A behavior seems to be almost touching on something that Ben Callahan was talking about on episode 3, which is culture.
Mm.
That
Mhm.
behavior is very, very attached to a culture, and I'm wondering what, as we're thinking about impact, what is the impact in that area? What is a positive impact in behavior and culture?
Hmm. You're throwing the wild card questions at me.
Yeah, I'm just making things up as I go along.
Yeah, yeah. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Aren't we all? Yeah, I mean, I think if we think about culture, not again, not as this like mystical thing. I guess this is my soapbox. It's not magic, but culture as the thing that happens when you get a group of people together.
Mm.
And you might have a culture that is more rule following, right?
Yes.
Like your designers and your engineers very much want everything to be like by the book and like here's the process and you have all the checklist. You might have a culture that is a little bit more freewheeling, where people are kind of rewarded for going off and cowboying it a little bit. There's all kinds of different cultures, and your organization has a culture. And a lot of times when it comes to design systems, I think that we bump up against those things without really knowing it, because culture, and especially in a business, especially for like think about your engineers or designers, they have a culture that they're working in, they have a job that they're trying to do, they are rewarded implicitly and explicitly for doing certain things and punished for others.
Mm.
um, and when you are coming in and you're going, coming you're like, freewheeling, like cowboy, like everybody gets to experiment, every team gets to choose their own technology kind of culture. And you're like, you're going to use it like this. You're going to use React. You can only use this tool. Here's the rules. Here's the checklist. Everything's locked down. Everything's like linted super hard. You can't like even commit any. Do you think that they're going to be like, oh, yes, we love this because you're
No.
butting up against that?
No, that everything you said just made me very scared.
But the opposite is true too, right? Like if you have a
Mm.
very focused, very, and I don't want to say rigid because I don't mean this in a bad way, but a very like rule following culture.
Sure.
If you come in and you're like, yeah, just do whatever you want, here's some components, like they're gonna be like, what do I do with this? I don't know how to use this. But more importantly, I think we want our designers and engineers to do certain things with the tools that we've made, and often those things are in conflict with what they get rewarded for,
Mm.
again, explicitly or implicitly. And so this is the mystical. You have to have leadership buy-in. It has to come from the top, and like somebody else has to tell all the engineers like that they have to be using this thing. People are more complicated than that.
Mm.
And so when I think about impact as behavior change and culture, I'm thinking about how do I meet my customers, my designers and engineers, how do I meet them where they are? Like, they're not just going to change their behavior overnight. They have a job to do, they have constraints, they have things they know, they have personalities, they are people, they have teams.
Mhm.
What is it that they're trying to do and struggling with? And there's been a lot of like, oh, design systems is a product, but I think a lot of times we don't really take into consideration what that means, which is like, if you're building a thing and you don't understand how the people you want to use it are using it or not using it and why, you are not successfully delivering this product to them.
I've actually seen that.
Yeah.
And
I
I've
haven't
even
before.
seen it go to such an extreme that where designers and engineers were saying, "Oh yeah, we're using the design system that was mandated
Mhm.
upon on high. You must do this, or there will be consequences." And then to see that actually that is absolutely the last thing that they are doing. They are not using the design system. They were simply saying that they were. Um, so yeah, just that just something you said there reminded me of that actually happening, and that was a very, very frightening event in my point of view. Oh, your audio went out. I'm so sorry.
How about
There,
that? There we go.
lovely. Yes.
Um, no, I was just gonna say that,
Talk
yeah,
about
I've been
scared.
suddenly the
Ah.
podcast doesn't work. Uh, no, I've certainly seen that as well. At Indeed, not that exact situation, but at Indeed, we had built a version of the design system, and it was very impactful. I had a mentor, a manager, Rebecca Murphy, is just like a genius at understanding organizational impact needs. And this first iteration of the design system was what helped us move from all the engineers writing all of our front ends in Java to React. So it was like a huge organizational shift that happened because of this tool that we were able to provide for them. But it was really interesting to see, because over time they started shifting. Like engineering team in general is a big team, is 75 plus teams, learned how to use React, right? Like we went from having all these Java developers to all these people who knew how to write React, and suddenly the way that we had built all these tools for the design system just like was not cutting it anymore for a whole bunch of people who knew how to use React and who wanted more. And React tools had changed, and like all this new stuff had come out. And for various reasons, the system hadn't really been updated. And I think in a lot of cases, what happens is we go, oh, well, the design system has failed, or like time to make a whole new one. But what was happening for us is we were not hearing, I mean, the team went through a number of political, organizational iterations. And so I think it got kind of like lost in the sauce for a minute, but we weren't hearing their complaints. And we were going, it's there, just use it. It's there, just use it. And so teams were using it, but it wasn't working for them. And so they didn't want to use it. And then they were like mad about it and frustrated, and it didn't work for, other parts of the organization. And so, we had to do a lot of real new design system, like new big refactor work. And it was a massive undertaking, but it was also because we had, two things. One, I think failed to listen to our customers there for a little while.
Right.
But two, the doing the big refactor, a lot of people would say, oh, that's a failed design system. It's a second design system. And the way that I see it is like, we finally got our act together and we were like, our customers are unhappy, but we can't not have a design system. And we're trying to do this big redesign. The organization wants this. How do we actually deliver this in a way that's really valuable to them? Which actually was really impactful. And it's because it's not a design system is not a like successful thing you deliver once.
Oh, sure. And any product, I think would have to be in the same vein.
We don't think about our products that way. Like we don't think about our businesses that way.
That's right. Yeah.
We don't think about any other infrastructure that way. You don't like hire your database and deploy people and then be like, thanks, bye.
Hope you like SQL.
Yeah. No, the engineers can just run all these migrations, right?
Perfect. Sure. What else are they going to do? Just kidding. I love you, engineers. It's funny because actually we were both in very much the same boat, in we're generalist in technology. So you probably have more than one tech programming language under your belt, and you see things from different perspectives.
I've done a couple things.
Not your first rodeo. So let's have a young up and coming, I want a design system, by gosh, for my organization. And maybe
why?
Why? Yeah, well, that's a good question, isn't it? Why do you want one of those? And
I think this is actually really important, and I'm interrupting because I think it is the question.
Maybe that is, yeah.
Well, I mean, like we were at Front End Design Conf, Gina talked about this, like design systems are just how we build UI now. And that's kind of true. But I think we still have this idea of like what it means to have a design system that's a little bit divorced from reality. Like if you put together like, the Tailwind UI Figma kit and like theme file on like, boom, like you have something that is basically a design system. And that level of like, if you think about a design system as like some components you can design with, some components you can code with, maybe some way to keep those in sync, some like level of theming, like that's just how we make UI. And so when you're going at, if you're a young design system practitioner and you're listening to this and you're in your organization, you're like, we need a design system because otherwise we are not a real grown-up company. Like that's not the reason. The reason has to be because I see my engineers building the same thing 5 times. Because I see all of the designers like doing all this extra rework. like, because I see all these visual bugs. If it's not kind of in that category, are you just building a portfolio project? Like, which is cool. Like, go build a Figma kit for a portfolio project, go build a side project. But like, that's not going to be a successful thing in your organization if it's just to have it and then hope that efficiency falls out.
Right. And how would you, maybe help me with this? Because obviously it's got to be the efficiency. If you're delivering that, you've got to be delivering a value that can be recognized and metriced. Help me metric that.
Mm.
Help me sell that to my boss's boss.
Efficiency is a tough one. The first thing that I would say to go do is read about DORA metrics in the developer efficiency space. And most of what you're going to read is, this is really, really hard to measure, because how do you measure the efficiency of a single person? Is it number of tickets? Is it lines of code? Is it individual developer output? Like, we instinctively know that it is none of these things, because you would absolutely not want to be measured on like how many Figma frames that you made, or like, how many PRs you did, or like there's so much more that goes into efficiency. And so I think a metric or an efficiency is very challenging. But in the DORA metrics for developer experience, the best thing that they have is this idea of cycle time. And so as designers, you can think about cycle time with your engineers, or this like handoff time. And this is something I'm trying to start to track at Color. You know, how long does it take for a designer to hand off some work to an engineer and to get that built? I'm looking at, are we finding bugs? So we do like for big feature releases, we do a QA session with the engineers, the designers, and the PM. And so like, are we finding visual issues at that stage? And I think that's one of the things that even anecdotally, like this is not a thing I was like, you have to tell me a number, but just anecdotally, are you seeing fewer of those things? So we started experimenting with Figma dev mode. We just did a big refactor to fix so we use Material UI. So I just shipped this like last week, a big refactor to improve our theming with Material UI, because designers were seeing a set of colors, engineers were seeing a set of colors. Some of those colors were not on the theme. Some of them were on this other color object. And so it was just like, it was a big anti-pattern, a big mess. And so one of the biggest things that we were hearing in visual consistency, and again, and this touches on efficiency too, is like, oh, it's not wrong color, wrong gray, not that blue. Oh, the engineer can't find that color. I'm going to use a different one. Oh, that's not. And then there's like back and forth. And then, so like just by eliminating that, like now when the designer says it's this color, the engineer can literally type it and it's type safe and it autofills and like, boom, you get what you wanted. And if we can see how that's going to reduce those kinds of back and forth, like where the engineer is like, oh, I don't know how to build this, or like, oh, what color is this, or like seeing that in QA. And again, that's not a metric that I can put a number specifically on. Like we went from 25 QA bugs to like 10, but they can tell me, right?
Right.
They know.
Yeah. And and of course, me in colors. I mean, you're waving yarn in front of a kitten, and that event that you just mentioned is like, it's like, what's the right color? Well, that is something I think, in our universe we're very proud over here at Dow Jones, is that there is no question anymore. We've just got that down to a wonderful science, and so that becomes a very curious metric. All those discussions that almost every other company in the world is having,
you don't have to have them anymore.
We don't have them,
and I don't know how you like KPI that, right? Like I don't know how you say, but that's the kind of thing that you can go talk to your leadership about, and you can get those anecdotes from your designers and engineers and say, when was the last time you had to have, an argument in handoff about what color this was, or when was the last time we saw an accessibility color bug? And you'd be like, 6 months ago. Never. Like that's really valuable. And so even if your leadership doesn't necessarily care about colors, or even if they don't care about accessibility for whatever reason, like if they're thinking about how much time is it taking my team to ship this product.
Absolutely.
And they're not wasting a week talking, doing like feedback and doing all of this, color like nonsense. So things like that.
Absolutely. Wow. Would you believe we're at time?
No, we could go
No,
for like 30 more minutes.
I know. We're just getting started, I thought, but nope. It's 30 minutes, so we have to end right now or around now. Anyway,
Around now.
thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that. That is it has to be one of the hottest topics that everybody wants to
Yeah.
know more about.
Yeah, it's definitely timely. I mean, I not to get into like spicy takes, but it's been very, very hard to watch the impact of layoffs and on design system teams because it's very, very hard to see something that we know can be really impactful in an organization and have the organizations go like, we don't care about this. And I think some of that is much bigger than design systems, right? It's economic, it's VC, like there's a bunch of other stuff going on. But I think it's also a little bit of a wake up call for us as design system practitioners to think about the way we've been doing this work and how we talk about it and what it actually like means to do this well inside of a company. How to be a little bit more nimble and respond to what our organizations actually need, and how to look at the work that we have in front of us and go, I actually can make a decision about choosing to do this work and not that work because I know that it's going to actually do something for my team and for my company. And I think that in a lot of design system teams have been missing that. Um,
Absolutely, and we are. I consider this a science. I think it's just a very young science, and I think
mm,
we're growing and learning from each other as a community.
mhm.
To and I think that's one of the aspects that we really need to nail down is
Yeah,
being able to sell the value and don't undersell it.
yeah.
Uh, maybe that's that, but thank you so much. I think that is going to be it for this episode. That was a deep impact with Elyse
Great.
Holladay, and appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks everybody for listening in. Always love to be on the soapbox. So if you want to chat about it, you can find me on LinkedIn mostly, and shoot me a note. I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your experiences, and see you on the internet.